Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of My Tech Story Africa. My name is Alice Kanjajo, your lovely host, and today's guest is a good friend of mine, David Kimani. David is an artist whose story unfolds with a paintbrush in one hand and Bitcoin in another. While navigating the complexities of the cryptoverse, David overcame challenges in selling digital assets, but found unexpected guidance from local Bitcoin exchanges and bookies, ultimately cashing out a substantial amount. A contrast, as David went to pursue a master's degree in international contemporary art design practice, he balanced freelance graphic design with Bitcoin profits. Now, while in the UK and Malaysia, difficulties in transferring funds back to Kenya inspired his vision for making his own impact into the crypto world. He is now the founder of Afrex, which is an innovative platform for buying and selling digital assets.
We're very African focused, and when you're building a product, you don't want to just be commercial. Anything to do with money, you can just buy and sell, because you'll notice a lot of the ones who are very prominent are not in Kenya. And in Africa specifically, because they feel like Africa is like a third world.
By the way,
I would like to give the opportunity for Africans to feel the same sort of financial inclusion, so that's where we solve the problem.
David's story showcases a creative spirit and the limitless possibilities at the crossroads of art and technology. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Be sure to subscribe from wherever you're listening from. I am absolutely honored and super thankful for all the love that we have been receiving on all our social media platforms, as well as on YouTube, Spotify. So for all of you who are listening right now, I am absolutely thankful. Keep subscribing, keep sharing, let people know about the amazing stories that we share here on this podcast on a weekly basis. We also have some really cool content that we're doing aside from the podcast on our social media platforms and our website, our blog. So amazing things in store for you this year. Keep subscribing. Check out our website at mtsafrica.co and be part of our community so I can be up to date with everything My Tech Story, as well as what's happening in the tech landscape. That being said, let's get into the episode. Hello, everyone. Welcome to yet another episode of the My Tech Story Africa podcast. And today we have a special guest who is also a friend. And I will just allow him to introduce himself before I say anything else.
Yeah.
Yes. But his name is David Kimani. And David, tell us who you are.
That's like my really government formal name.
I mean, maybe you have another name you want us to refer you to.
I think I like David Kimani since we're like trying to be more like formal about this.
All right.
Yeah, but I go by the name David Kimani. I am a lovely friend to Alice and a friend to others. And that's how I met Alice. And I think what she's doing is really cool.
Oh, thank you so much.
So I think it's a pleasure that you have invited me here to talk about my story. And I think just in general, we can talk about each other's journey, but I think I'm the focal point. Each other's
journey. This is all about you today.
It's right. Okay. Yes. Great.
Exactly. Yeah. So maybe you can give us a bit of background on, your career and who you are. Just give us a basic LinkedIn description of who you are, because just to get our listeners to know what we're expecting through the episode.
All right. Just in a nutshell, I'm a young entrepreneur. I wear many hats, and the one I'm more proud of is more or less the journey of my my tech experience in like the Bitcoin and crypto space. I think that's more or less where I enjoy the most. But passionately, in terms of my what's my persona that has molded me to the level I am now, I was actually a graphic designer by profession.
Wow.
So that's like where I started from like scratch, doing my foundation, my undergrad, and my master's. Yeah. Wow. So then I scaled up that to be like an advertising designer and also marketing on the side. And then I did some few leadership roles in like my uni, which like more or less now built like my personality for the corporate world, I would say.
Yes.
Because that allowed me to be into a leadership role as advertising agent. I did that for like three months, and then I scaled and I met one of my contacts in the government space. So he was a high commissioner, and during that time he advised me that I should take more of like a hands-on leadership role with a student ambassador, because I was more like hands-on, especially being in like an advertising university. You get very like you be like in the space where people are fashionable, they dress up like so like extravagant, you have no idea.
I mean, depends on the university you went to.
Yeah. I don't know ours, because I think for me it was in the Asian space, Southeast Asia, was Malaysia.
Yes.
So the university I was in, funny enough, which was it's called Lim Kok Kuen University. So if you actually look it up, you'll end up finding that it's very involved in like the fashion space and the architecture space, and everything that falls like underlying that is like the founder. So the founder is a very prominent Asian guy who passed away not too long ago, and he ended up doing a campaign for Nelson Mandela.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So, and now the daughter was very into like the fashion space. She then poached me saying like, I think I want you to be one of like our student ambassadors and our models. So
model.
Yeah, there was like, I had like my model phase where I did some runway stuff.
No, now I'm really interested based on just that summary that you've given us. Yeah. Before we take it any further, I think now I want us to go back to your journey into even becoming a graphic designer, because you mentioned that's where this all began before you got into crypto.
Yes.
So tell us about, where your interest in graphic design was and how you decided to pursue that in your higher education as well.
I think I would like to commend my dad, because he was one of the key pillars in my influence, because he initially ended up being in like the printing era of when Kenya was booming with like printing. So they used to import like a machinery from like the UK. So they go to the UK, like a bundle of like cash there, and passports were like a freaking booklet, and they had to like go with their cash to buy like those machines at the time. And when he did that during that space, I think you're familiar with Sharp. So it was like a 3-brother venture. So the eldest brother, because my dad's like the last born, they ended up doing the printing business as a franchise, and then he ended up doing his own printing company called Print Point in town. And then back in the day, he used to let us come to like the shop and see how to build the rigs for the printing press. And they used to do like 1,000 copies. They used to do like a lot of books for Kenyatta University, and used to get like tenders for like State House.
I think that's such an underrated industry, first of all. I rarely, or I've never met someone who, does that. I think it's like those industries that you assume things happen, like the covers of a passport or, textbooks, like how they're actually covered and everything. So that's
and they used to do that like overnight. I used to be with him in the office for like 2 days straight overnight, just supervising printing. Go to school, come back before I take a matatu, I would say. I think if we're trying to be more formal for the audience.
No, just be you.
But
they want the authentic you.
Yeah. So we used to do like matatus every time when I used to come back from like uni. So my dad always used to come in and be like, oh, I can draw for you this. And he used to draw like circles of like sheep. And I was just like, this is something really cool I could dive into. And all of a sudden, that's like being in the creative space, like made the vibe for me to be more like artistic. And then I ended up doing like fine art, actually. That's where like most of my talent grew. I used to do like murals and like canvases.
Sorry, at what age is this that now you discovered, okay, you can do this?
Since I was like 8.
Since you were like 8, wow, that's a long time.
Between 8 and 16, that was like my very like, I used to buy pastels in town, Winston Newton's, canvases.
You've done several murals and stuff. And
I actually still have most of my collection in the house.
You should have brought it us for people to see.
I mean, it's like a whole suitcase. Like it's literally, I used to have like a gallery of myself.
At that time, what did you imagine yourself being in the future?
I was thinking more on, at the time, I wanted to open my own agency, graphic design agency. Funny enough, that's literally what was my plan when I was coming back from Kenya, when I did like my whole undergrad. And then during that transition of doing everything like more fine art, then the digital age happened, and then Photoshop and Adobe came in. And then I started making like posters and selling like t-shirts for like most of my brand that I was trying to push, because I was like very into like skateboard, and that mostly made me do like graffitis on the walls. So there's some tile graffitis we used to do. And if you know, Kenyatta University used to hold like this arts, I would say like, I don't know what you guys call it, but it's like a fair for like artists. Art exhibitions, right? So you meet like people who deal with clay, and that's we're just more on like the painting side, with like oil paints, and I would say watercolors was like also a good thing for me.
I did play around with watercolor and acrylic paints. Acrylic, because I think what's interesting is I'm relating just slightly with your story. I can't say to the magnitude that you've done it, but I also did art and design as my extracurricular in uni, and it was my favorite subject in the whole wide world. For a very long time, my entire childhood, I did see myself as growing towards becoming an architect.
Okay,
and
that's a big deal.
I did really want to
I salute people who are like architects.
Yeah, now I'm looking at it was definitely not for me, but I did
like
enjoy.
Like a big ruler and like a suitcase.
That it looks like a very intense degree, but I knew my primary focus was to do this, so that in uni I do architecture. But I think either way, even if that's not the path that I ended up pursuing,
it's very creative.
It was all just still connected in the creative energy that I think it was just a sign that there's some creativity that needs to ooze out, and maybe that's why it manifested into this. But that's very interesting. Okay,
so that's the journey.
So now, I mean, you finished your high school, and now you're going to Malaysia, which is a new continent, new thing, but you're still going to pursue. What degree did you end up pursuing?
Advertising and graphic design.
Exactly.
Specifically.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, what was that journey? And then where in this time did crypto get into play?
So basically what happened was, initially I had two options. It's either I become like a pro footballer, because at the side of doing design and art, I also wanted to do like something to sports, which I took it seriously for like a period of like a year and 6 months. Out of just when I was turning 15 to 16. And then my parents are like, do you want to do education or do you want to like go sports? Because my brother ended up getting a scholarship to go to the UK and Kent. And then I got more or less like an admission, because the uni I went to, they had a partnership with Curtin University. So I said, okay, let me just go try this. I aced most of my art and like my portfolio was nice. So they said, okay, why don't you just do this, go to KL, which is in Malaysia, the capital. And the uni was like, okay, I think you guys can get admission. You should come through. I think we like his portfolio. And then he can pursue and then maybe go to Australia, since they have like a partnership.
Sorry. Your parents never gave you any pressure to pursue a more quote-unquote serious degree or path for your career? Like it almost seems like they were supportive.
I think my brother like literally cleared the way for me, because he did product design.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So like he went full on product design. Right now he owns his own like studio for film. So it's something very much what you're trying to do.
And this was a time when, I'm assuming, what
2007, I would say. Like when UK was just
2007, you're deciding to sell people that I am going to become a product designer. I feel in the Kenyan space that was very audacious, but also, that's something.
He's his own character. I'll touch on his story because he also influenced some of what I'm doing.
All right. Yeah. Okay. So
so that happened. So did my uni, and now since I'm like full on graphic design, I settled in. I started getting paid in like digital assets for doing brand identity. At the time, I didn't know what Bitcoin was.
Could you just expound on what that means? You started getting paid for.
So what happens when you're a freelance graphic designer? You tend to now get more like gigs. So I used to do like brand identity for like clubs, like club promotions. They want like posters of like they're like hosting events, some social gatherings. At the time, there was like an Asian guy who did more like runway stuff. Because at the time when I did dabble with like fashion, you then meet like contacts and you do like networking. And they're like, oh, you do design? I think you should come and design for me this business card. I'm building a company here. The next thing you know, somebody's dad is like, hey, my son told me that you do this. And then now you just start ranking up like your networks and going from like one paycheck. And I think if you're like in the graphic design space, if you really want to like enjoy, I ended up opening like a Behance portfolio and then having like my website for like my design work onto it. Yeah. And then you just catch on and then start scaling.
Okay. First of all, I'm really just, when you first told me this story, because I think you've given me a bit of tidbits into your life previously, I think I was very shocked considering how I would assume you as a person. I think the first thing that clicks the perception that you portray. I think people have this ideology of what a graphic designer is supposed to look like. But I just think people do that in general, for you kind of personify people with how they look. So most maybe graphic designers maybe look a certain way or present themselves less formal. But I always see you I rarely ever see you in casual clothes. And even when I'm seeing you in casual, it's probably for golf or something. Right. So anyway, I digress. I promise, guys, this is a tech story. We are coming there.
It's very techy.
Okay, so yes, now you're having gigs, and now did you start requesting for payments in cryptocurrency?
Yeah, so what had happened was during like me doing like my freelance graphic designer, then one of like my clients who was like dealing with her, like, hey, by the way, I have like this thing called Bitcoin and I want to pay you in it because apparently it's going to be something cool. So Chinese
what year
guy,
is this? Sorry.
This was between 2013, between 11 and 13.
The prime years.
Oh, is that of the
crypto boom?
To be honest, I didn't even know.
Yeah, I mean,
you tell me this now, and I'm like, oh, so this is what I was living, this like web era and the internet. Yeah, at the time I was just doing LimeWire and like streaming for like if you didn't get like Apple Music at the time, like that's more like iPod.
Yes, the iPod era.
Just get like 100 music in one CD.
Stuff. Yeah. Okay.
So that happened. One of my clients introduced me to this, and it was weird enough because the son I used to be like bunkmates. Yeah, when I used to live on campus. And he's like, okay, so I'm going to teach you how to store this thing. And I was like, oh, what's this? Oh, this thing called a wallet. And you just put it on a platform and then just monitor your profits. So every time you get paid, you just give this wallet and then the transaction happens. At the time, I didn't even know what a transaction was. I was just like, I'm side hustling. It's another one I'll add to this.
It's just
another thing. Because at the time, I was doing a leadership role as a student Kenyan ambassador for my uni. So I was getting paid off that. So I was just like, this is another side hustle of getting graphic design work.
You were being paid for being a student ambassador for Kenya.
We used to give like clock-in hours. On top of that, I used to do like some fashion gigs. I used to be an MC. So anytime...
MC?
Yeah, like proper...
In Asia?
Yeah. I think if I really wanted to have like my followers on Instagram, I would have hashtagged at the time.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but I did that. I did fashion as well as part of like my freelance jobs. And then, so this tech thing happened. Since you're like in a very creative university aspect, you meet like a lot of like different people. So I like people from Ukraine, people from Russia, people from Botswana, I would say Indonesia, because like Southeast Asia. At the time, I think Iranians was also a big thing because there was like also like a conflict with like the Iran war in the US. So a lot of like the second home, like Malaysia made it like a second home for like these guys. So a lot of Iranians I met, a lot of people from Syria, Palestine as well. But yeah, we ended up like meeting a lot of people. So the fortunate ones is I ended up meeting a guy who's by the way, the perception of Asians, you'd think they're smart. So me, that's what rubbed off on me. Like Chinese people, I'm just saying, hey, this is something they're paying. This guy must know what it is.
That is the true perception.
Especially if you travel outside.
Asians, yeah,
you just think that, especially I was 16, 17. I was just learning as I was going. Yeah. So I was thrown out there just to
go and discover life.
Yeah, just discover life. And I was the last one.
Okay, there's also the last one aspect. Okay, so now you're being paid in crypto assets. Did you start telling your clients that this is my preferred payment?
Nope.
And then now, after that, how did we progress now into deep?
So what I would say is what had happened was I ended up getting paid by like 3 other clients in this Bitcoin because it was not even crypto then.
It was Bitcoin.
It was just Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And Bitcoin at the time, I was reading on it on Reddit on how to like host like most of like your wallets and how to keep them safe.
Yeah.
And at the time, I'm just like, what's hacking? Like, what's a programmer? I didn't even know what a developer was.
Yeah.
It's just, I want you to pay me in this extra currency and then let's see, we go from there. Then fast forward 2013, 14, suddenly I see news like, oh, you know what? The guys who had invested in this, there's money to be made. And I was like, wait a minute. So I had some X amount.
Did you spend all the money when it would come in?
No,
in
of
Bitcoin?
course not. What I actually, funny enough, at the time, it was more of like a very dark web type of currency.
Yeah.
So there was a stigma behind it. So me, even when I was getting paid, I was like, what am I into? Because you know, when your parents send you out there to a foreign country,
is this what they do?
the last thing you want is to just be that child who's like, you know, your son is abroad, and now we need
Bitcoin.
to. There's this thing, he's getting paid. So when I told my dad, like, you know, I'm getting paid in this currency, apparently it's a cool thing. He's like, hey, be careful because people are losing money off like just normal investments. Yeah, and I just told them, okay, I'm getting paid in this. So if you know what it is and it's something valuable, see it through. If not, at least you tried.
Yeah.
So, but the trying was more than trying because it actually changed.
Did it catch you?
Yeah, it shifted a lot of like how I see, not how I see, but I would say. At the time when I was getting into uni, even getting like to be paying for like your tuition was like a lot because Curtin University, Australian, is expensive. So out of that, I even ended up getting profits and paying for like half of my uni. Yeah, and like my parents took like a loan to like get me to like uni, and I later found out, I'm like, you know, so I've made some cash. I'm finding it hard to cash out, but the ones that are helping me cash out this profit, I can be able to like pay for like my 3-4 semesters.
Wow.
Yeah. So I scaled on that.
What was I doing in 2013?
No, but to be honest, I was living like a lifestyle. I was just going out, partying, you know, like the normal.
You weren't thinking I should invest this money and stuff, or there was enough to kind of tailor for all your needs?
I'll be honest with you, from like an African standpoint, I think the education part didn't brush off on me. No one like came and taught me like how you guys get on the internet. You get told, you should hold. I didn't even know what holding was. Me, I was just like, this thing is making me some X $1,000s. Let me just, now you get money, you put it into what's like financing you.
Yeah.
So I had to pay my rent, I had to like pay university, and I was just like, okay. And then I got to a point, end of like 2015, when now I should now do my master's. So I'm like, okay, I think I did some leadership roles. I got like 50% discount. Let me just continue with this. And then I was just like, oh man, my homeboys also got into it because they found out, you know, you used to get paid in this. Why don't we try it out? And then at the time, I think Coinbase was like a thing.
Yeah.
But it was very like, I think Coinbase was the one, and BitPay for me was the one that I used to mostly get paid in. And to transition from the stigma of digital assets and them being like, oh, you know, you're affiliated with like contraband. I'm like, no, somebody just used to pay me the same way. And funny enough, that company was a mining company that was contracting an Asian company to do, you know, like the mining rigs.
Yes.
So they used to assemble it in Asia, and then now they ship it. So the Chinese company that my friend's dad was in, he's the one who told me about this, and that this guy used to pay me. And I was like, this is cool.
At this time, when you're going to pursue your master's, could you confirm which master's in what?
It's funny enough, it's a long one. It's called International Contemporary Art Design Practice.
Hey.
Yeah. So I would put it like my undergrad was more like one client at a time. And then maybe just how you present your idea is more for like a small business. And then master level is like thesis, like 30,000 words. I had to like create an idea for like, let's say an institution or like a district. So what I did with my master's, I based it on wayfinding an identity. So like, you know how you go to like a toilet and you say like logos? And if you go to like a zoo or like a hospital, you say like red lines. Or like, if you go to a very more modern tech city, you end up seeing more of like this type of minimal signages and maps. So I had to build like a whole credential on how that affects like your psychology. Yeah.
Wow. First, another audacious course.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how I would be telling my mother that we are going to pursue this master's,
right,
and then be okay with it. So at that time, you're still thinking graphic design is like my go-to. I'll end up maybe, because one thing you find out in life that sometimes you end up also morphing into like your parents. So I ended up being like, I know my dad was like into printing press, and he was like and when you're last born, they brush off like, you know, I did this, so you should try, because since I know what that feels like, you should also go to it. So then
the design space was still in my rear view mirror.
Yeah.
And I was just like, okay, I'll do this. I maybe come back to Kenya and like open an agency. So I did that. I came back 2015, opened like a small agency. My dad at the time ended up having like an office space in Muthaiga. I don't know if you know a place called Golf View.
Not sure I know where Golf View is.
But literally,
yeah. Where
it's more like let's say like in between Kiambu Road and Thika Road.
okay.
Yeah. So then he said, okay, you can come and just set up like an office, and then you can have like your clients, and then from there you just network. If my friends are your friends and they want to advertise some stuff,
They reach out to you.
yeah, they reach out to me. And I was just like, yeah, but I'm so much like a hustler in my spirit, man. I can't like just be like a job. And also like a job was one thing like my dad was rooting for. I told him like, man, my personality is just not too.
It's not gonna
yeah.
align
And I
with
think
this.
the time when I was more conscious with like myself, how I want to like build like my spiritual self, like my mental state. And I think when you're creative, funny enough, your mind opens up to, you start seeing different perceptions of like how, like even like the media teaches you to like indulge things, so you know what you don't want. So me in my mind, I'm like, man, I'm not gonna build somebody else's life. Let me just first start with mine, build my brand. If that doesn't work, at least I know I tried.
Yeah,
Or I've
you still
done
have.
this.
You're still gonna take away a couple of things from this experience.
So during my master's time, it was more like a very corporate level, because when I did leadership roles, I ended up now having a chunk of still my profits in like Bitcoin. And like, as I mentioned, as an African, you don't really get told to hold investments. I think it's the part where they educate you on finance, well, you know, my parents gave me all that they knew. And at the time, shares and government bonds was it.
That was it.
Yeah, like, or land, right?
Yeah.
So when they did that, they're like, okay, yeah, when you get some, I'm just like, boss, 30 million for a house and a land is like 40 million. I'm just like, there's no way I'm going to be an employee for my whole life. And I was like, this sounds like a new digital investment. I think I should like hold some and like diversify. So during like my master's age, and when I came back to Kenya, I met one of like my friends who's also like he was a diplomat at the time. So it's like, oh, there's this thing called Binance, and I think some of these profits that you have, why don't you just put it into that exchange?
Binance.
Yeah, it's a very trendy way. And I'm just like, he must really know what he's doing, because I guess he's also very like, he's more like, he's like a very educated guy. So, you know, you're like, okay, I think from like mental level, you meet friends of friends, and then you say, oh, you have this, me too. And this is what I'm doing. I'm like, oh, you should try this out. And that's when I was like, and then I ended up discovering like local Bitcoins, but I didn't even know what P2P was. So, but at the time, more or less the profits that I had sold, a majority of them, I ended up putting it into like just sustaining like my lifestyle of maybe living in Malaysia towards the end of my master's. And also I was traveling, because I was in between Thailand, Indonesia, Singapore.
Must be nice.
I mean, it's a burden. If you ask me, it's not always perfect.
What was a burden about that?
So what you find out with having like internet money is that you don't know how to sell it at the time, because between 2011 and 13, no one has money equivalent to how much the value was. And if you're selling it, you're one of those guys who are like doing bad deals.
Things, black market.
And I'm just like, okay, maybe I'll try to educate myself and maybe get to a right environment where people can teach you how to sell this. And majority of that ended up having, I think there's a company, I think called Luno, the
one that's crashed at some point.
No, not the coin.
Okay.
Luna, it was an exchange.
Yeah.
And I think in Malaysia, people who are more affiliated with Bitcoin were like bookies. So if you're like into like sports betting, you probably might meet a bookie. And
What's
anything.
A bookie?
So it's like those people who give like high bets above like, let's say $10,000, or deal with like, if you go to like Gong race course and you want to like book for like a horse race, and you want to like bet on a horse race.
Yeah. Okay.
You'll
Makes
need like
sense.
a bookie. It's like those people are now more, and I think Asia also, in Malaysia at the time, there was a place called Genting Islands. It's known for it's like Naivasha, how you go and you party. So now that area is known for like where people with like a lot of like millions end up spending their money, and there's like more cash. And I ended up being friends with now one of my other friends who was also selling cars. And he's like, oh yeah, I think one of like these guys are selling Bitcoin in exchange. So maybe you can offer him like a value and you can cash out. So that's how I started. But after a while, you end up finding out you don't want to be in a space where you're just having a lot of cash. And I'm not a cash guy. I just like, M-Pesa I think was booming at the time, and being in like abroad and always like living on your own, you don't want to just have like loose money around. Yeah, so I ended up just cashing I think like $10,000 at the time, which was like a lot to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What age is this?
That was when I was, I would say 21, 22.
Wow.
Yeah.
22 years old, and
22.
I'm playing around with this kind of money. I think that's a big commitment, and I can see how it can become burdensome.
Yeah. The good thing with like, I think my mom is very more outspoken. She's good at budgeting than all of us. She knows how to get this, save this thing called Chama and everything like this. So when she found out like I had like a portfolio above that I couldn't handle, she's like, why don't you put it into your rent or your internet bill? Or now every time now we're not sending you allowance, you have something to like hold on to.
Sounds like a strategy that would alleviate the burden of you from them.
Yeah, facts. But for me, I'm just like, pressure, man. I'm like, man, these dollars are too much.
It's too much money.
Yeah, and I think most people like, so you don't know about holding the money. Also when you're young, there's a dream of how you want to live your life.
You want to live your life, and you're living it. You're 21.
Yeah, so it's good enough, but I don't have like an addictive personality. So I didn't dabble into too much partying life.
God, I don't know who I would have become.
Yeah, but I had a phase. I'm very like how you hold their bottles and you're stepping on like sofas and you're with your crew of like friends.
Rite of passage.
Yeah. So I enjoyed that. And also since I was like in the modeling space, partying was a thing, and like always like getting sponsored like fashion runways. And since like my friend whose like dad was the founder of the uni, and how she does more of like the fashion shows, because she had like an online, I wouldn't say an online, but like a local brand that was established in Malaysia. So she also used to like showcase her like, I would say like a portfolio of like her garments in like KL Fashion Week. And I ended up being in part of like the camera crew at one point.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, and you make friends, and they're like, oh, we're going out here, so you go. So I'm like low-key like, oh, okay, I can enjoy this lifestyle, but overnight stuff just wasn't my personality. It's like sports, going to the gym, maybe road trips was like my thing. Yeah, and if you're in Southeast Asia, backpacking was like
a big deal.
Like eating like street food. Yeah. So when you have like $100, enjoying life just a little bit.
Wow, but someone here did not have 100, but 1,000, 10,000, who knows? But I mean, that's happened to you in your life. Did you, I think before we move on to the next part of your story, did that change who you were as a person? Did money make you different at that age? And did it make you feel that maybe you don't have to pursue other things and maybe focus on this crypto thing that is booming? But it seems not, because you were still doing the fashion shows and whatnot.
Yes. So now at the time, with like all this money coming in from like the internet age, I ended up finding myself more like, you want to now focus on your passion. You can now finance your passion. So I ended up like traveling a bit into that. I ended up putting like deposits for like my interest to now get like good credit loans to the bank. But unfortunately it was not in Kenya, because most of the time any funds and this is also one of my issues that I had. So when now I was leaving in 2017, I ended up finding myself that most of the profits in Asia, getting them to Kenya was like a big deal. And I'm like, But
it's my money.
yeah, not only that, but I used to get paid in the same bank account from Kenya to Malaysia. So now sending it back in like dollars was like a lot. And I think the perception of how blacks were looked in Asia, because I think some Nigerians didn't do well for us in that part. So they all thought if you're like an African guy, this guy's a dodgy guy.
Yeah.
But I think also I didn't know the banking system at the time. Even like sending money back home was like a big deal. And I ended up now having like my brother helping me out and just investing some of my profits in like the UK. So that also opened up the pursuit of why is it so hard to like sell like your hard-earned profits into like a country now where you want to, I think if you do like some leadership roles, you get told come back to the country and build the nation.
Yes.
And I may believe that dream. I still do to a point, because in my personality I like to help. I think I get that a lot from my mom, if anything, because also at some point when she was grooming me, she also used to do like tithe, you give to the church, you give to like charity. And at the time, I think I also donated some for like orphans in like some, I think I can't remember which county it was, but I think it was a time when I think UNICEF used to like donate maize and stuff like this. Yeah. And so out of that, I'm just like, man, there's no way like getting profits and like selling in Kenya can be so hard. And I think I stumbled upon a company called BitPesa.
Yes.
Yeah.
BitPesa.
Who did something very similar to like making it easier for people in Kenya to buy and sell. And I'm like, I think I can.
There was no like exchange you'd think you would have just done and Binance and Bitadraw.
No, not for like the profits that I was dealing with.
Okay, fair.
Yeah, I think the European market was more like number one, the banking system is more convenient. They are more open to like large investments. And for me, I think my brother was more like he has been there since 2007. So I think 14 years now. And he was like, why don't you come and try to learn how this place is? And low-key, I ended up studying another career path into film. So while I'm trying to transition most of like the profits of like my Bitcoin era, and now trying to see whether I want to create a company or continue my design agency from where it was in Malaysia. And since it's like very creative aspect, I like, I can do brand identity for my company. It's going to be a crypto company. So I started as a consulting company. I called it Advantech Digital Holdings. And it was very like tech umbrella. So I used to have where I can put like my design agency there. I can put like, if I want to do my printing company there, I can have the same company just outsource. And then maybe like contract like freelancers from like Kenya. Because I also had that as part of like my friends even in Kenya. And then since I have some friends also in Malaysia in the tech space who are like more coding and fashion, if like, oh, you want to design and my client is like Asia, I can have like one of us guys like do a commission with my friend. So that was like the umbrella of the consulting company. So that was a bigger picture.
So you would do digital consultations for digital art?
For digital art, yeah. And then I dabbled with like gaming as well, like visual arts. But more of, not me personally, but I used to contract friends. I'm like, okay, one of my clients wants to do something in gaming. And I know you're like your proper like iPad and like sketching. Yeah. But fast forward to that, I ended up going to the UK, expanding on now whether I want to have a company that's very financially related. And I think the UK space and that the financial infrastructure is cool. Like how they build like their banks and like their payment system. And I think that inspired me to learn how to better build a company that's very financially related. And I was just like, okay, I have some of my investments here. Let me at least try and see if I can give the same opportunity I got investing in like Bitcoin to like Kenyans. Because here you find like P2P companies, you don't know who he is. You're giving like your bank details. So for me, I was like, why don't you just have something centralized? And I think that at the time, I think BitPesa was the one. And I kept on getting referred to this company. And I was like, why don't you try to do something like these guys? And since you have like some tech friends of yours and they know how to code, why don't you just build off that? Yeah, so apart from that being there for like, I would say a year, I ended up, these things take time. As much as I'm saying it very simple. But between 2017 and 19, that was like my exploration process of building anything crypto for like as a stakeholder. Mm-hmm. And I ended up getting into film. I started being I would say like an extra for like any movies. So the very cool movie that I first got featured in was called Death on the Nile. I don't know if you know the girl who played Wonder Woman.
Oh, yes.
Gal Gadot.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm on set. I've been contracted by an agency. And at the time, I'm like, okay, well, I wait for this to come. Let me do a side hustle just to keep me busy. And also being like into like living in London, I have to know my way around. So they give you from gig to gig. So as you live there, I used to live with my brother. As you live there, I used to move around one gig to another.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, damn, yo, why does this like lady seem familiar? I'm like, oh yeah, she's like a Hollywood superstar.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, hey, why is she so tall? And apparently, for some reason, Americans are tall. Like,
okay, yeah, I
like
see it.
6 foot,
Yeah.
and plus you also like starstruck. Now I know what it means.
Yeah,
to be like starstruck. So you're on set, you're with a bunch of guys who are like, you feel like the background of the movie, and that got me into like film. And so I'm also still in the creative space.
I'm sorry, I'm just a bit confused because we had this whole design agency thing going on. You're now learning how to build or rather be in the crypto space and just figure out how finances and business in regards to that works. Yeah. How then does an interest in film come along? And you're calling it a side hustle, but it's completely off from what, it's not completely off per se, but it's a bit different from what you were already pursuing. Why didn't you feel that this one thing is really what I want to prioritize and get my heart and soul into?
I would say because at the time, when you find yourself being self-reliant, you don't have like allowance from like your parents or any siblings like paying for you. You have to make some money and you have to have savings.
That's true.
Yeah. So I'm still on like freelance mode of like graphic design. I'm like, this is another gig I'm going to do. And then I'm end up like now focusing, have some enough money, I'm upkeep to like now finance more of. And plus, as much as Bitcoin you have, that's not all. You're just entering and eating from the pot.
Yeah,
you also have to have like,
make more.
Yeah, you have just, and I think for me, I just like to keep busy. And if I feel I have the talent for it, I would probably do it. So that's what made me. But I think I was there for like, I would say a year. I did like most of like the film stuff for like a year. Ended up doing, Universal contracted me at some point to do a film production as an extra for a Netflix film called is it The Crown? So actually next month I'll probably know where I am.
We'll pop you in.
Yeah, I'm probably somewhere in the background with some airport scene.
Okay. Tell us the exact scene we'll look for you.
Yeah. So for that one, what happened? I end up being Diana and like the Arab boyfriend at the time. They end up going to like the airport and like when finally like the British knew like she has like this Arab guy. So like the scene happens where when they walk into the airport, I'm one of like the business class attendees. So I end up just like being starstruck, like, oh, what's this commotion of paparazzis come in, and then boom, I have like a scene where my face. So low key when you're an essay, you don't get as much screen time as like the main celebrities. So najitolea too.
You just go.
It's like
I'm there.
Yeah, I'm there. Yeah. So I did that as part of my side hustle. Ended up doing a Apple TV series called Ted Lasso.
So I've definitely heard of it.
So I feature in season 6. I'm in. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It is really cool. Our studio audience is also getting starstruck here.
Yeah, but I end up being in that. And what happens with these things is very secretive. So they have like code names for like on set. So you don't go leak them. So I ended up meeting like the main character in Ted Lasso, the coach. So he's a very American comedian guy. I meet him, and my scene was I get instructed to So it's like a business class scene where we're putting our luggage like on top of like the
airplane.
On the airport, and the airplane, sorry. And then I end up like reshuffling like my like luggage, and I'm supposed to I get instructed to sit down on like my business class and put in like my safety belt. So they zoom into where he is in the scene and look at the back.
You can say, I'm here.
Just some guy like a suit.
I'm on set.
Yeah.
Oh no, I love that.
Yeah.
That's so interesting, and I love the duality of like just doing anything, even if like I mean I can do this, I'm good at it. Why not? Like that's
you only live once.
That's energy that a lot of people don't have because we're always so worried for like this one thing that I'm really good at needs to happen for me, or just one path in career. Like whatever I do, maybe hobbies, I do it once in a blue moon, but just deciding that, you know what, I mean, I'm doing this, but still, why not do this and pursue this and live life like that? I think that's very admirable of you, honestly. And I think we're also in awe of this. I know, you know, I'm a presenter here and there, so I have to know some of these big these big terminologies. Okay, so we need to start wrapping up our episode, but I guess now we can get into where you are today. So tell us more and what we need to learn more about your journey.
So now I'm more into the stakeholder level as a young entrepreneur. I end up transitioning my company from like the UK space and now trying to launch the startup, because now I end up finding out how to build like a platform, getting the right team to help me program the platform at the time, just to make it easier. And then I ended up discovering what on and off ramping is. It's more of a terminology. Here in Kenya, I think you call it collections and payouts. So I end up finding out how to build a platform, a marketplace that helps people buy and sell digital assets with like their local currency. And I didn't want to touch more into custodial stuff, like having like hosting a wallet, because when I did my research on the right companies and how they build like their parent company that's gives you a foot point, especially if you're financially related with like transactional products that are very transactional, you want to also make it tax compliant to 2 different jurisdictions, because I later found out when you're in the crypto space, you'll end up finding out your currency can be swapped into other local currencies in the world. So you always want to be in a good jurisdiction that allows you to do that. So as my hopes were to always start in Kenya, but the policies here are very different. And I ended up leaning more into like the European side. So most of my contacts, more my contacts, I would say, then help me structure this better. And I really look forward to launching the product. It's called Afrex. It's something really cool that I've put in like stealth mode. But more or less in a nutshell, it'll help local communities buy and sell digital assets easier payouts like mobile money, and also through like Visa and MasterCard, because the partners I've partnered with help you do that with like low fees. And if you're like trying to be more of like a corporate company like B2B, you can end up even having like a payment solution where you don't necessarily have to hold the digital asset, but you can be receiving it, and then the payouts to you as a business can be in your local currency.
Okay, that's really interesting. I think I have a couple of follow-up questions based on your business model. First one is, I mean, in the age that we're in right now, these are probably somewhat similar products to what you're building that have been built or are currently being built. Fintech, you know, has received some of the biggest investments across the continent as well the past couple of years. So, I mean, what makes you stand out from your competition, and why should people do Afrex once it launches as opposed to the other platforms?
More prominent ones? Yeah. I would mostly say because we're very African focused, and when you're building a product, you don't want to just be commercial. Anything to do with money, you can just buy and sell, because you'll notice a lot of the ones who are very prominent are not in Kenya. And in Africa specifically, because they feel like Africa is like a third world.
By the way,
yeah. So you'll find out one foreign company might get fundraising, come and do like small marketing to just get some users, but then their primary market is to Europe. So I feel I would like to give the opportunity for Africans to feel the same sort of financial inclusion, to get. So that's where we solve the problem. And I feel we're more stronger in terms of even the volumes, because funny enough, there are millionaires and billionaires in Kenya and in Africa, and they also want to diversify their portfolio. And for them, it's better when they deal with someone that they're more used to. So if it's an African-owned company, it's a Kenyan-owned founder.
And you can easily reach out to as well, communication.
Yes, you can communicate. One thing, most digital asset companies, you just see a platform. You don't know a founder is there.
Yeah.
You don't know what shell company is behind that.
Yeah.
But the fact that you're building a product that's very relatable, and also just like from like a youthful standpoint, they're like, oh man, this young Kenyan guy is doing this. Even me at some point, I think if I want to do some tech stuff, someone's doing it. You can get some sort of, inspiration. So I try to also live as much to inspire people, even when I'm not being intentional about it.
Yeah.
But you always want, you always like, for you, like I know like a little girl can be like, man, I'm into podcast.
Yeah.
I've just had Instagram, you know what I mean? And I'm like, oh, this girl called Alice. She had like, the mic. That's so cool to someone just coming out of high school.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm trying to at least do my best to
be cool.
Yeah. Be cool. help some Kenyans, So what stands out for us and my product is more or less, it's very localization. Yeah.
Yeah.
Trying to be simple with it.
I think my next question should be my final. Based off this conversation that we've had, your background seems to be heavily towards the creative side. And I think some people may have a concern of trusting you, especially when it comes to finances and money. It's a very touchy topic. So I just want us to just have a discussion on how you think that may impact people's readiness to trust you to be the one to kind of have this product, and people should use it because of just your history. So I think what are your thoughts on that? Do you feel that may affect the success of your company? Or
I think it's a really nice question.
Yeah.
Very good question. Thanks, Alice.
You're welcome.
Man, to be honest, I think trust is very much something that you have to earn and build. You can't just be the right person for it. You can only just put in a product, put in the efforts towards it. If you've seen my story, there's a lot of consistency in making sure you get the right resources and the right networks. And during that journey, you tend to meet some key figures that help you build this type of environment. Because one thing you don't want is to, with the way the world works these days, you always want to just be yourself. For me, I don't build products to please people, but more to solve problems. So I always put it this way: if you end up finding out you're building a product and you're convincing people to buy into it, then it's just not worth it. You want it to just relate to you. And also from like, why I even gravitated to like digital assets, it's because you don't have to be tech savvy or have like a financial background to just know when an investment is going to boom.
That is true.
Yeah.
And that's what investors do every day.
Yep.
Believe in the person who's building it.
Yep. You just go for it. And in everything in life, there's chances you have to take. You have to believe in somebody. Even for the fact that we're talking, I may not be the most famous person in Kenya or the most creative person, but when you meet, you're like, I think I can relate to this person and we can have a conversation.
Yeah.
So you just start from one small thing to the next.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think to just support what you've just mentioned is, I think connections are what build each and every one of us. I think building a company is more than just what the founder or the CEO can do. It's all about which partners can we do to have the maybe Visa and MasterCard enabled for making transactions.
Correct.
And which connect, the on and off ramps, who's going to be able to help us do that. Can we do it internally or do we have to outsource? So I think there's all these networks that you have to kind of have to make any product or business successful.
Yeah, I actually agree with you because when you build a product, for us our main focus is to know how to localize this, and more of the time you don't want to be very greedy in, okay, I can build like a payment system, then I code it.
Yeah,
you just have a partner whose niche is that, and you just have a split revenue agreement.
Yeah.
If it's a bank that's going to be holding your funds, you tell them they want deposits, and you're like, I have a business that's transactional. can I go and meet? And I'm a very hands-on guy. So whatever I'm doing, I'll probably be meeting the main person in that space. If it's a developer, I have to make sure like we're on the same page. It's not just money and you just pay a guy to do work. You want to also find out that you guys have something in common, and it's long lasting, because money is like the last thing on your mind. It's whether you're happy doing it, whether the challenges are there. You're like, you wake up in the morning and you're like, man, I think this is really cool. Like, to be honest, perfect example is if I didn't go to like the digital space, me and you probably would not have met.
That is true.
Yeah.
Well, I would have probably met you given the spaces
and
that we have.
did meet in like another social event.
We did not meet on a text standpoint,
right?
But no, I do see your point. Yeah. I think everything happens the way it's supposed to happen because it's supposed to happen, and
there's a beauty behind this tech space. I ain't gonna lie to you.
Yeah,
it's
so
amazing.
there's some beauty in it. I mean, I also read it because my background is creative, and I just happen to have landed a job in the tech space that has essentially changed my whole life and outlook of tech. And here we are highlighting, my footprint is not very direct, but I wanted to really make an impact in the tech space as well. So how do you do that? And
I'm looking underselling some of what I'm saying, because there's some, especially when you're in the money space, there's some individuals who may want to help you, but they don't want to be known. So I also had to learn as part of networking. Some people want to help you. They're genuine. They're in the investment space, but it's just personality allows them, okay, I'll support you. You just thrive on this. Even like companies, they say, okay, we'll help you. And then,
exactly. So I think just to close off this conversation, before I ask you our closing questions, is we did have a guest here who mentioned that just because just knowing your personality type, I don't have to be the founder of each and every product that, as an engineer especially, I don't have to be the one that founds it, but I am very willing and happy to support someone else to do whatever it is that they're building, because I know my impact would still be significant towards it. So just something to also inspire our audiences. Whatever, like, don't give yourself too much pressure to know everything. And the connections that you build can help you be whoever you want to be as well.
Yeah, man. Especially that connection part.
The connection.
Yeah, you meet people and end up they tell you, this is what I do, but since what you're doing is really cool, there's a stage where we'll meet. But for now, just keep going.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's
and
true.
you don't have to like. I did acting, modeling, got some investment that ended up making me build a platform, and also getting into like football. At the end of the day, it's good to always follow your dreams and your hearts, but realistically. Because for me, financially, as much as I would like to travel the world, the budget to always have that is not there. So you have to create a career path that in the future, like I would say, set yourself up for success. And entrepreneurship is not easy. No. There's a burden that comes with it. I call it the founder's burden. Yeah, but you end up, you have to sacrifice. I ended up having to sacrifice 5 years of my life to just focus on something that can now build a good foundation. So there's no easy way out. If you really want to go for it and get some money that can help you in your life, you have to put in the work, sweat.
You have to start from somewhere and then just go with it.
And it's all about people, to be honest. Whether if they're financing you, if they're supporting you, it's a very people's thing, and that motivates you even more.
Wow, I've really enjoyed this conversation, David. I think,
cool, man.
You had, before you came on, you had told me once that I think that you'd be a really cool guest for this podcast because you have a lot to say, and indeed you did have a lot of interesting, inspiring things to say. To close off each episode of my podcast, rather, we have 4 questions or a statement that we're going to have. The first one I'm going to ask you is, what's one word to describe the journey to get to where you are today, and why?
Oh, I'll just say that again. Oh, that sounds really nice.
What's one word to describe the journey to get to where you are today, and why?
What one word? Does that be one word?
One word.
I would say consistency. Yeah.
Why?
Why? Because you fall and get up so many times. You'll even meet business partners who might slow you down, family members, just friends in general. But if you really want, the light, if you want to see the light at the end of the tunnel, you have to really, give your all to it and the more consistent you are, the more you start learning even things about yourself you don't know. You start even maturing, and you end up just having fun with it. Knowing like having faith in the journey. Faith. Yeah.
Okay.
And that helps. Yeah, consistency.
Next question is, what advice would you give to someone who is aspiring to possibly get to where you are today?
I would say I can only relate to my own struggles and successes. Have a good faith in God. If you're a believer in Jesus Christ, personally for me, that has fueled most of my success. If you're able to have family around you, if your mom is alive, if your parents are alive, it's also good to create a good support system. If it could be a friend that you know is like, I really like what you're doing, just you speaking about this is inspiring. A support system is important because you need to build something in yourself, regardless how long it takes. But with the way the world is in technology, it's good to have a thick skin. So there's many no's. If you know the famous quote by Michael Jordan of how many times he's had missed some shots, he hasn't dunked, he's been given the winning shot, he messed up, and that's why he succeeds. It makes sense because you have to go through so much in order to really fuel your passion or your dream, or just being dedicated to something that you think you can succeed. Or I don't know if you're a fan of Troy. Do you know the movie Troy?
Who's Troy?
It's it's based on a Roman Empire.
I think I know it. Yes, I just haven't heard of it in a minute.
But the main character is called Achilles, and there's a scene in the beginning where he has to go fight this big, the best of the army's guy, and it's one hunched up guy. And during that time, a kid wakes him up from the tent. He's like, "Hey man, you're supposed to go fight for your side of the Romans." And the kid gives him his shield, and he gets asked, "Hey, this guy's a really big guy. I'm scared of him." And then Achilles takes his shield and he talks to the kid, and he's like, "That's why people won't remember your name, because you have to really fight the Goliath."
You do.
Yeah.
Wow, I love that. I think that was also gonna answer one of the questions I was gonna ask you, but the next one I'm gonna ask is, do you have any regrets or things that you wish you would have done differently in your journey?
No regrets, to be honest. I'm very at peace with how things are going.
Things planned out, yeah.
Yeah, because everything in life happens for a reason. So despite some successes, some things I wish I would do better, I'd probably say in some situations it's good to be prepared. You might not know everything in the room, but if you are strategic and there's certain things about yourself you'll have strength in. So it's good to show the weaknesses. That's why I do this digital asset stuff and employ people, because I'm not an expert at it. So in hindsight, those are my weaknesses. So I help someone like you, Alice. You're into this podcast. If I want to learn from Alice and how to market, I think Alice is a good person who can.
I am.
Yeah.
I am.
Yeah. You should definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
So no regrets.
No regrets. All right.
Yeah.
Do you want to end off, close off the episode with a powerful parting shot? Something to leave.
Big shout out to Alice Kanjenjo for the big ass host. Please stay tuned for Afrex. It's going to be a very interesting platform for those who want to buy and sell digital assets safely in a more compliant way. It's very non-custodial, by the way, so you don't have to feel like all your millions of cryptos are going to be held by us. And yeah, man, I think I'm going to be done with my self-funding round because I've been self-funding the project. And I like the relationships I've built, and hope to see you guys in the field, man.
Hope to see you guys in the field. We're super happy, and we shall be updating our audience once the launch happens and keeping up with your story as it progresses.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you. Yeah. Guys, you've heard it from David Kimani from Afrex. He has given us a very unique and insightful episode. If you did enjoy this episode, which you should have because you are at this point into the episode, make sure that you subscribe from wherever you're listening from, whether that's on YouTube. In case you didn't know, we have visuals on YouTube. You can also also find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any other platform that you tune into your podcast. Please make sure to also follow us on social media at My Tech Story Africa on all your major platforms. And finally, join our My Tech Story Africa community. It's a very vibrant community, or it is a growing community, and you can join us through the link in the description, or you can check out our website, mtsafrica.co, and you can get even more information about that there. My name is Alice Kanjejo, your lovely host, and I shall see you in the next week's episode. Cheers.